Welcome, welcome, and good morning to another weekly edition of Go to Market Friday. We're really excited today. We've got a special guest, Jennifer Ives, joining us from the Virginia area, talking about our favorite topic, AI. You can't go 10 feet without bumping into the words or the acronym AI, and we're going to be doing a deep dive. Jennifer's got a great background as an AI strategist and also as a board member. So she's got this unique blend, and I can't wait to dig in with her as far as all these different team adoption challenges and where AI is kind of headed from a team and ROI perspective. But before we do that, just as a reminder, my co-host Meg, who formerly ran Serious Decisions Research and former CMO, we have been doing 400 plus episodes for 3 years now on go-to-market strategies, primarily ABM, but most recently go-to-market. In the upper corner, you could see the QR code. So if you don't have time to listen to this video in entirety, you can like and subscribe to the video. It'll come back into your YouTube feed, and you'll find any go-to-market question really on those YouTube. Of course, you can always come back to Meg or I to ask questions about any go-to-market challenge you might be facing, and we can point you in the right direction if we can't answer it directly ourselves. So with that, Jennifer, maybe we could start off with the first question. Like, how did you get into this AI as a background? Because it sounds like you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me today. This is so I love your Friday shows. I participate and join often as a listener and a viewer. So it's really nice to be a guest. Thank you. Yeah, I started out as a geospatial engineer. So I'm a technologist as a software engineer for many years, and I had an executive team at the time who really invited me into the rooms with other C-suite, right, with our customers and our clients, and talking about their projects. And I got to hear firsthand their challenges, and as I was building out their technology. And what I came to find out also is that I was very interested in how companies really bring their solutions into the marketplace. And so it was through this opportunity with my C-suite at the time that I started to learn much more, and this was very early on in my career, much more about the go-to-market side of the house, the operations, the finance, the marketing, the sales piece of a business, of a technology business. I've worked with deep data and AI companies for years, not just 3 years ago with the advent of LLMs and when ChatGPT and other LLMs hit the scene. And it's something that I really love to do because there are many, many questions, and from the leadership perspective in particular, the C-suite and investors and board members really, trying to build their own, what we used to call AI literacy, and I now very specifically refer to as AI fluency. So it's all of this love of technology and then love of putting that technology into the market. So I've been doing go-to-market for years, and really specific to data and AI related companies.
Well, I'm kind of related to that, Jennifer. One of the things that I think all of us have seen over the last few days is with all those wrap-up posts looking back at 2025. One of the unfortunate wrap-up posts I keep seeing is saying people aren't necessarily getting the ROI on AI that they were hoping to get. And even data that I've worked on with Inflection Group says it's mostly in the areas of productivity and not really in any revenue impact. That's kind of a big deal, given the investments in time and money and focus that people have put into it. What are some of the reasons you think we're not yet seeing the impact that AI is promised to have?
Yeah, it's a great question. So most of the AI breakdowns that I see, and by most, I mean 95%, have nothing to do with the technology. They really happen when people stop feeling safe inside of this change, right? So there are a lot of questions around trust. There are a lot of questions around safety when it comes to people's jobs, and kind of that can go on and on in terms of the reasons behind the trust question. And I spend my days with leaders who are genuinely trying to get AI right. Like, no one is trying to not get this right. And they are trying to do so not just faster, but more responsibly and more human. And so when they talk about kind of this lack of ROI and the lack of failure, it really is not necessarily a technology failure, and it's a leadership challenge, because AI doesn't replace leaders needing to make these decisions. AI is exposing some of these decisions or lack of decisions that are being made. And so let's really quickly, before we talk about the ROI, I realized I used the words AI literacy and AI fluency, and I just want to define those really quickly for everyone. AI literacy is knowing what AI is and generally what it can do. So that's AI literacy. AI fluency, and this is what we need everyone to have, right? We need everyone to have a level of AI fluency. It's knowing where to use it, where not to use it, and who's accountable when it does something unexpected. So AI literacy, AI fluency. And so what does that look like in the real world? So just imagine AI literacy means you recognize the car. AI fluency means you can drive it in traffic, in the rain, with people in the back seat, like, right? So that's the difference between AI literacy and AI fluency. And most leaders today are actively becoming AI literate. Far fewer are truly AI fluent. And that gap, that's where, when we talk about these adoptions and when we're talking about ROI that's not working, that gap is what is surfacing now, right? That's where the adoption breaks down. Teams get anxious, budgets get burned, use cases aren't chosen correctly, questions are skipped over, kind of steps and frameworks are skipped over, because people are feeling a lot of pressure to, I often hear, like, just, can we sprinkle in a little AI, right? Can we sprinkle in a little AI to deliver an ROI? And you can't do that, right? AI isn't so much a technical decision, it's a leadership decision. And I know that's a soft leadership way of answering, meaning soft instead of the hard technology skills. However, that's really where the breakdown is happening. So when we talk about ROI, we need to just back up a little bit and really talk about AI fluency. Most people don't have a level of AI fluency to actually ask the right questions and create those frameworks, or even adhere to the frameworks in order to find the use cases, right? Find the friction points. That's really at its core. That's really what it is you want to find those friction points. And you want to use your teams, leverage your teams to identify those friction points. Where are they suffering the most? Where do they see the needs the most? And the three of us, and maybe those who are listening today, may be in a bubble where we're all AI fluent. The vast majority, I'd say 80 to 85% of teams and leaders are not, they don't have that level of AI fluency. And that is not a ding. That is not something that is, that is a criticism. That is the fact. And so that L&D piece, the learning and development piece for everyone, is critical. And it's actually, I would love nothing more than to spend my days kind of architecting and building AI products. And most of my days are spent actually describing and walking through the steps around AI fluency, so that leaders can make better decisions around the ROI. So happy to talk about that a little bit more, but I certainly wanted to get to the crux of it, which is that it's a leadership and it's an internal change management conversation, more so than the actual technology.
Yeah, it's such a good point that you're making there about the framework that you shared. I think the literacy and fluency is a critical framework, and identifying that this is just like any technology, right? Like MarTech went through the same thing. Even sales tech goes through the same thing. It's change management, but it's probably a lot faster and it impacts a lot more people, but it's still ultimately leadership and change management. I'm curious, building on what you shared about, okay, it's really a mindset shift or a leadership responsibility. How would you suggest a leader go about building that trust? Or how, like, if you had to give like 2 or 3 things that a leader can kind of sink their teeth in to get AI adoption, what would those 2 or 3 things be?
Yeah, the first is one, and I'll say it, they need to have their own AI fluency, because if they only know that it's a car and they don't know the other things that I mentioned, then them being able to put something into place and have ROI flow from that is nearly impossible. And so their own AI fluency. They also need to be incredibly authentic with how artificial intelligence is going to be used in their company, either internally or in a product that's going to be used externally. The authenticity, here's how we're going to use it. This is our thought process. Here's what we're doing for teams internal. Like, be authentic. Many organizations skip this step, and without bringing people along in a trusting, authentic way, it can leave room for the lack of trust to really bubble up, and that's a real challenge. That's a real problem. So, and then some of the things that they want to do is, one, they want to be showing, leaders want to, in addition to what I just mentioned, the two I just mentioned, a third is showing and demonstrating to your teams how you are using artificial intelligence, either in your personal life as well as in your professional life. When you break down those silos and you start talking about it, it kind of lets everyone else exhale and understand that, okay, my leader is using it and he or she is using it in this way. So I can come forward, and when I'm asked, what are some ways that we could use AI? What are some friction points that we might be able to really implement the technology? What are some business use cases, right? So what are some AI use cases that they feel comfortable doing so? The fourth piece is they need to be asking questions in every single meeting before rolling out any AI use case. One, the leader has got to understand and name who owns the decision, right? It's a person, it's not a committee. So one, make sure that the leader is naming that, the team is naming that. Who owns the AI decision? And then what outcome are we actually shifting, right? This gets back to the very real question long before AI, like, what business problem are we actually trying to solve? And that's a question that companies and organizations struggle with all the time. AI to the side, right? Just like, what business problem are we trying to solve? So in the world of AI, you mentioned that it moves much faster. So if you've identified or haven't identified, so I was going to say, if you have identified the wrong business problem, or you haven't actually identified the business problem, it's going to highlight that even faster than normal. And that's going to cause some problems for you and some challenges for you right away. And then you also want to understand, where's the real risk, right? Is data, bias, compliance, hallucinations, like, third question. And then who's accountable if this goes sideways? So those are four questions that leaders routinely need to be asking themselves. They need to be asking their teams, and they need to be sure that those questions can be answered in about 30 seconds. And if not, then you've got to go back, even before you identify the business use case, you've got to go back and really answer the questions that I just mentioned.
Yeah, you're bringing up, I think, some really important things. It's not, you're not putting a Band-Aid on something, right?
No.
But I think the question we've got here from Roy is an interesting one, and that's, he's asking about integration into existing workflows. How do you make some of those choices? And I'm going to add on to your question, Roy. I hope you don't mind. And what if the existing workflow is no longer useful or not even the right one? I think that's so how do you go even back to the drawing board a step before that, of saying, we have these existing workflows. How do we decide which ones need AI and which ones don't? But then the other part is, and how do we figure out which ones just need to go out the window or get completely redone?
Yeah, this is where teams have to get really honest with each other. They have to get really honest with each other, and they had better have a lot of trust with each other, because you're going to sit in rooms together and you're going to ask these questions. And by the way, there might be favorite tools, there might be favorite processes that one person or a specific team has that really has to be thought through again. I mean, most teams that are driving AI successfully and seeing real ROI are those teams who had those conversations and had them honestly, I'm going to say it again, authentically, and really went back to the drawing board on, if we could reimagine this, what would it look like? Now, it doesn't mean that if you reimagine it, it can happen tomorrow, but it starts to get at what processes are getting in the way. They served us well in the past, but now they're getting in the way. And so these are leadership conversations. Again, the technology is to the side, right? Once again, like, let's highlight that the technology is to the side. You have to get incredibly real with each other as to, what are you trying to solve for? What processes, plural, are still helping? What aren't? What technology do you have that is still helping? What isn't still helping? Before you start thinking about bringing in a new technology, whether that's AI or something else, like a new tech stack or a new process, again, I love to architect and build artificial intelligence products all day long. These are the conversations and the questions that you have to sit in, and you have to sit and answer these questions in a way that will lead you to the technology questions that everybody wants to jump into, right? Even the question that you just asked, which is an excellent question, you do roll it back to, well, where is the friction point? What isn't working for us any longer? And again, some people have real protections over those, right? And that has nothing to do with AI. That's business, that's organization, that's how decisions have been made for years. Like, people love certain things and they have certain protections, and they, in a world of AI, also those protections could come from the fear of losing their job. If I don't do this anymore, what do I do? What piece of this team do I play? Like, what part of the team am I any longer? Versus really having agency over what it is that they do on the team. And when they mention kind of, this process doesn't work any longer, here's what I recommend instead. Like, that's where we want to get to with our teams. That's where we want to get to, right? As leaders.
I think you're making some excellent points about, especially the fearfulness of jobs at the working level. In talking with a few different CMOs, I've heard some frustration at the executive level of saying, why aren't we adopting AI quicker at the working level within my organization, to the point where they're changing their compensation structures, like an MBO, based on AI use cases and AI adoption, and making it part of the compensation, because just saying it alone is not getting the adoption. But I'm curious, based on that dynamic and based on what you just shared about the fear of the jobs, how do you empower that team to articulate or to go after AI when there might be either some resistance or it's learning something new? Like, how does the team, at the team level, not the executive level, but at the team level, any suggestions on how to empower them?
Yeah, absolutely. The technology is changing all of our jobs on a daily basis, and it's happening so quickly. That is the piece of AI that is different from other technologies that we've seen in marketing, in sales, in operations, like in human resources. This technology is moving so quickly. So everyone has to realize that AI is here. It is changing jobs, and from a marketing, right, a go-to-market perspective, what is the new role that you are going to play? If a piece of your job is changing, it is incumbent upon you to be curious about how that change is impacting you, and to stay ahead of it, to have agency, right? We want everyone to have agency over their careers and their work and the work that they do with their teams. And so having that curiosity around, okay, this is changing my, what I'm doing on my team, as well as across my industry, or my profession, and or my profession is changing. How do I want to be part of this change? I mean, I will share from a personal perspective, that is what guides me. Is I'm constantly curious, and I'm always wanting to pull the curtain back on technologies, right? I want to know how this works. How is this impacting me, my team, the technology we're putting into the world, the technology that we're trying to serve to our customers? And so I want to share that energy with those that are listening today, because this ability to be curious and to have agency over your decisions and your next steps in your career are critical. So I would encourage a couple of things. One, be very curious about how it's impacting your career. How is this impacting your job, and how is it going to impact your career today and into the future? How are you going to be a part of that, right? How are you going to be part of that and not push away from it or pull back from it? How are you going to be part of it? The other piece is that you as a team really need to think through, again, how it is that you're approaching, because you are getting a lot of pressure from leadership. That's coming from investors, that's coming from boards, that's coming from the press. Kind of, everyone focuses on a few stories of things going really well and all this ROI being delivered, and the vast majority are not experiencing that yet. And I root that in trust in leadership, the ability to be curious and really look at, how is my role changing? How is my role changing as an SDR? How is my role changing as a CMO? How is my role changing, right? You fill in the title, and leaning into, okay, how can I use this technology? How can I be the voice inside of my team, inside of my division, inside of my company, to help us move forward? That's another piece that I see often is in meetings, I will see individuals literally pull back from conversations when we're talking about different opportunities for artificial intelligence, especially on the go-to-market side. I will see them looking at the technologists in the room. I will see them like it's like they're giving their power away in that moment. And we all know, right? You all know marketing, sales, operations, you know your job the very best. And so oftentimes companies will start kind of with a top down, give me ROI, give me a use case that delivers ROI, instead of kind of starting with the team, the frontline team, to say, here's how we're going to use artificial intelligence. This is what we're looking for. Please come to us with ideas. Where are you seeing the friction points, right? Where would you like help? Where would you like to apply artificial intelligence? What business use cases would you like to see? And it's kind of this top-down authenticity and trust and communication. And then it's a bottom up of, where are you seeing the challenges? So again, I think that when people feel agency over their career and over their jobs, that's where you really start to get the spark. That's where you start to get people, that is where you start to see the ROI when it comes to the technology that's being chosen, as well as the use cases that are being solved for.
Yeah, thanks. I think the word agency is really important there. I think people are feeling that loss keenly. And I think this is where Brian's question is coming from, which is a really interesting one. What's your guidance for teams who think they struggle because they lack information, but in fact are struggling because they're overwhelmed by complexity, uncertainty, internal friction, and fear of making the wrong decision? That's a lot of things to be afraid of. What advice do you offer to leaders in that situation? And maybe what advice do you offer to the team members who are feeling that way and don't want to?
Yeah, so that is a lot. And I love Brian's question, because that is the reality. There are many, many layers of fear that people are experiencing. And so let me see if I can try to answer kind of what I believe is the broader question here, is really how do you kind of work internally with leadership and also with teams? And it's incumbent upon, when you have your frontline teams, it's incumbent upon those teams that the leader on that team be speaking very frequently and very honestly with those who he or she are rolling to, and really understand the framework, as they do, right? Understand the framework of the organization. It is very challenging to kind of come up and out of that fear if, I'll go back to, if AI fluency is not set across the team. So any level of team, it could be the frontline team, the next line team, it could be your C-suite. If AI fluency is not a solid base, then you're going to be going around in circles in some of these conversations. And that's the reality. So again, there are so many free resources. This is the other piece of it, that unlike some other technology advances that we've had in a world of AI, the AI labs, the AI, many organizations, professional organizations, as well as the AI labs themselves, they understand that the vast majority don't have AI literacy or fluency skills at the ready. And so this is the first time we've seen, in any technology that I've been involved with for over 2 decades, this is the first time we've seen a plethora of free resources at the ready. And these aren't just kind of 1 and 2 hour programs. These are full certification programs that are free. And so again, I believe very strongly that in order to have agency over your day-to-day and over your career, pulling the curtain back on how AI is addressing and impacting the world of marketing, the world of sales, and making sure that your team, so if you're leading these teams at any level, making sure that your team has that AI fluency is the best gift you can give them. It's also the best gift that you can encourage and or give to your organization. Because again, that's where some of these challenges are getting held back, mucked up and stuck, is you're talking about a car, and some people understand what a car looks like, and some people understand all the pieces of the car. And to have the conversation, or to kind of bring yourself up and out of what Brian asked, you all have got to be speaking a similar language. Like, it literally needs to start there. And again, free resources galore. Microsoft, Google, Databricks, different marketing organizations, different sales organizations, MIT, Stanford, like the list goes on and on. Free resources that you can have access to have agency and to really help yourself, which then helps your team. And as leaders, again, on any one of those teams in your organization, you have got to, like, if you haven't today, like it was yesterday, like do it right away. This weekend.
That's quite a bit to think about there, and you're right. I mean, there's so much from a leadership and adoption perspective to consider. We've got a couple minutes left. I was going to throw the porcupine of ROI out, but I don't know if we can address that in 3 minutes or less. But is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't cover, maybe we forgot about covering today, that you think is important as it relates to AI and adoption, kind of as a closing thought?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, generative AI almost always lands in one of 6 lanes, and we need to talk about that because I think this can help people kind of put different buckets of generative AI, so that when they're having these conversations, they have some frameworks. Content creation, which we've been talking about, the research piece. There's coding for sure. There's data analysis. There's ideation and strategy, and there's automation. Those are really the totality. Those are the 6 buckets where Gen AI is going to land. And I think it's about, in particular for go-to-market teams, which of these actually matters for my team right now, right? And start to bucket that. 30 to 40% of efficiency gains in content teams are coming from kind of the content area, are coming from generative AI. So we know that, right? The 3 of us in your community knows that. And the wins, right? That ROI is coming from teams sharing, because the friction points to identify those use cases, and then they're testing, measuring, and iterating from there, and they're doing that as a team. The teams that aren't doing that, that's where you see this failure. That's where you see the ROI not really, like, you haven't identified the friction point to identify the use case, then test, measure, and iterate from there. And by the way, with AI, you're always iterating, you're always testing, measuring, and iterating. Like that is also what is different about this technology than other technologies, and the knowledge behind that, and the comfort in knowing I'm always testing, I'm always measuring, I'm always iterating. And so let me just kind of share that. And then I think also the kind of a, maybe as a closing with just a few, 60 seconds left, like, if you take one thing from today, let it be this, right? That AI adoption is not a software rollout. It is a trust test. And we focused a lot on trust today. And most people want very specific answers. And it really is a leadership and a trust test. It's leadership, it's trust and clarity, it's trust that people won't become invisible as the work changes, right? So that they have agency. That's why I encourage everyone to really, follow on LinkedIn, follow on TikTok and Reels, some thought leaders who are sharing generously their knowledge. Because when we all get this right, AI is not going to weaken your team. It's not going to weaken you as a part of the team. It's going to strengthen the team. It's going to strengthen you. And that's the future of work that I firmly believe in. And so you've got to have responsibility in your career and agency. It will give you agency over how you can participate on the team and the voice that you can be within your organization.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so very much for joining us today. I think it's been great to have some excellent questions, and also great to have your point of view and experience and knowledge as one of those people who's sharing her knowledge freely. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I love what you're doing.
Jennifer, really grateful. So much information that you packed into 30 minutes. So grateful that you invested the time. So thanks for joining us. And next week, we'll be back, same time. Mystery guest. I think we'll be introducing mystery guests, same time, same place for Go to Market Friday. And we will see you then.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday and happy holidays, Jennifer.
Thank you.